the phone in the car.
Turn it off.
So my question to you was, that I sent to Marisha the email.
Which email?
I sent this and it was showing that it did not. See, it is her.
Are we on, Paul, or not?
Amen.
We are, okay. Okay,
It should be the arrow, but it's not.
Did you go and send items?
Yeah.
I will look at it again later.
just waiting for a couple more people to arrive here.
Was there a sheet I missed?
I'm getting copy,
Okay.
it'll be here. I'm getting some feedback, Paul.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess we'll get started. The others are coming here shortly. Okay, so finally, we are back after a number of months. So, yeah, we left off in December at 2 Samuel chapter 12. And I always take a break from Christmas time till the end of April at least, because of tax season and I'm a tax preparer, so I am,
Busy.
yeah, I talk about being a slave to my computer. And when I leave, it says, come back, come back.
Not today.
Yeah, so, but I do have a practice of working longer days, but when it gets to supper time, I shut the computer down and will not look at it again till the next day. So then I get at least some kind of a mental break. At any rate, let's pray first before we get started. Father, this evening we just thank you that we can meet together and look into your word. And as we've been taught in the New Testament that these stories, these events in the Old Testament were for our instruction, to encourage us and to lead lives that are pleasing to you. As we look at these lives, we just pray that you might just put down firmer convictions in our lives about how we should live. And we just pray that you would guide in our time together, in our discussion, and that you would be glorified. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, the note should be coming soon. They sent someone to photocopy, so. Okay. All right, so 2 Samuel chapter 13, and we actually are going to be taking this verse by verse. Problem? I guess. Okay, so I started off here with a comment about what tragic lives were lived by Ammon, Tamar, and Absalom. There's no question as to the cause and effect between David's sin on the one hand and these events as punishment on the other. Remember God's judgment in chapter 12, verses 10 to 13, that David's family would be characterized by rebellion and sin. So let's just turn back just a page or so, to chapter 12, verses 10 to 13. It says, now therefore, this is the Lord's judgment on David because of his sin with Bathsheba. Okay. So he says, "Now therefore the sword shall never depart from your house, because you have despised me and have taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your wife. Thus says the Lord, behold, I will raise up evil against you from your own household. I will even take your wives before your eyes and give them to your companion, and he will lie with your wives in broad daylight. Indeed, you did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and under the sun." Then David said to Nathan, this is the prophet who came as the spokesman for the Lord, "I have sinned against the Lord." And Nathan said to David, "The Lord also has taken away your sin. You shall not die." It's interesting that he ends that declaration with, "You shall not die." Why would Nathan or the Lord be saying this to David?
Because the wages of sin is death.
Okay, we can be more specific than that.
Under the Levitical law, adultery was punishable by death.
Yes, adultery was, and also David was guilty of one other sin as well, murder, right? By having Uriah the Hittite put out in the front line so that he would die. Okay, so looking at verse 1 of chapter 13, it says, "Now it was after this that Absalom, the son of David, had a beautiful sister whose name was Tamar, and Ammon, the son of David, loved her." Okay, I'm just going to wait a second here while we get some. Mark, do you need the notes? Okay, Mark, and also Leanne. Okay. We all set? Okay. So, from 2 Samuel 3, verse 3, we won't look that up, but we know that Absalom and Tamar were the children of Maacah, daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur. Okay, so David had married Maacah, if that's how you say her name, and this was probably a political arrangement, okay? A political marriage, which was quite typical in those days, and we're familiar with that in our own, not in our lifetime particularly, but we know of European history and all of the political marriages that have come down through the ages. Absalom had actually been born to David in Hebron before his father became king. So if you recall, David didn't, when Saul was killed on Mount Gilboa, David did not go to set himself up as king. He stayed in Hebron and he waited for the elders of Israel to come to him. And he waited a number of years before they actually came and requested that he come and unify the nation and move to Jerusalem. Okay? So Absalom had been born in Hebron. Ammon was the oldest son of David by Ahinoam, the Jezreelite, and as the firstborn was heir to the throne. So this kind of gives us kind of the family setting here, where we have Absalom and Ammon becoming half-brothers, in a way. Okay, and so looking at verse 1, and it says here that Ammon, the son of David, loved Tamar, who was Absalom's sister. Verse 2, Ammon was so frustrated because of his sister Tamar that he made himself ill, for she was a virgin, and it seemed hard to Amnon to do anything to her. Okay. Was his love for Tamar genuine?
No.
No. So why was he drawn to her?
Lust.
Lust, yes. Yeah. I don't think it was just infatuation, okay? I'm sure she must have been very beautiful, and so he was looking simply on a physical situation here, okay? Going on to verse 3. But Amnon had a friend whose name was Jonadab, the son of Shimeah, David's brother, and Jonadab was a very shrewd man. Okay, so Jonadab was Amnon's cousin, okay? So the plot thickens here, okay? And he was the son of David's brother Shammah, okay? Who, in the different translations, he might have been called Shimei as well, or Shimeah. It says here he was a crafty man, and probably a minor official in the palace, okay? So he had some status. Verses 4 and 5. He said to him, O son of the king, why are you so depressed morning after morning? Will you not tell me? Then Amnon said to him, I am in love with Tamar, the sister of my brother Absalom. Jonadab then said to him, lie down on your bed and pretend to be ill. When your father comes to see you, say to him, please let my sister Tamar come and give me some food to eat, and let her prepare the food in my sight, that I may see it and eat from her hand. So what do you think of Jonadab now?
Foxy.
Pardon me?
Foxy.
Foxy, yes, that's a good word for him. What's his objective here?
Cause trouble.
Yes, yeah, it's right.
Is he hoping to put himself in good light if Amnon never becomes king?
Yes, yeah, he's trying to feather his own bed.
Right.
Yeah. So he's a friend to Amnon. Okay. So what do you think of a guy like this? Would you want this kind of a guy as your friend?
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Okay. So what's he actually, in a sense, encouraging Amnon to do? Pardon me, Suzanne?
Well, basically, have a relationship, an intimate relationship with her,
Yes.
and he could maybe use that information to cause problems down the road, kind of blackmail him.
Yeah, well, that's a good thought. Yes. Yeah, it depends how secret this is. I mean, he's in on the plot, so to speak, okay? He's actually encouraging Amnon to sin, isn't he?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And you don't want a friend who's going to encourage you to sin, okay? I was just thinking back to my teenage years, and you know how teenage boys can sometimes just decide to do crazy things, okay? And I had a friend that was very close, and they decided that that was when we had a Zeller's store in Guelph, and on the top of the Zeller's store, all the way across, were flagpoles. And so he and some of his buddies decided that we, including me, should all go and climb up on the Zeller's store and steal the flags. I wasn't a believer at the time, but I didn't think it was a very good idea, so I opted out.
Very good.
But I do remember my friend feeling very guilty after. They did do it. Yeah, but after that, he commented, he said, we should never have done that. It was wrong, we shouldn't have done it. So you live with the guilt as well, okay?
Not only guilt, we had the situation, a few young people climb on the roof, and one of the young person touched the wire, electric wire, was killed
Oh, wow.
on the spot. Young.
Yep.
And
Yes.
the other one was completely burned on the back. He was lucky he survived.
Yes. Yeah.
Good group,
Yeah.
They just went, don't have idea that the wire is there.
Yeah. Foolishness can lead to tragedy. Any rate, let's go on to verses 6 and 7 for a second here. Okay. So Amnon lay down and pretended to be ill. When the king came to see him, Amnon said to the king, "Please let my sister Tamar come and make me a couple of cakes in my sight, that I may eat from her hand." Then David sent to the house for Tamar, saying, "Go now to your brother Amnon's house and prepare food for him." What do you think?
No, yes. Strange situation, I think. And David having so many relationships and wives, I think he should have known better.
Yeah.
He should have, I would have asked, why do you want this particular sister or half-sister to come? I would have been suspicious.
Yes.
She could have prepared the food somewhere else, not necessarily when he is lying on the bed.
Yes. Yes, too provocative, you know. But I mean, it's just, that was my question. Should David have suspected that something was not right about this request?
Absolutely, yes.
Right. Yes, he should have. But it's easy sometimes, isn't it, folks, to be blind to what's going on around us, you know, and that's why we need the Spirit of God to open our eyes to see things that are suspicious, okay, or that we should avoid. And I know as parents, you know, encouraging or teaching our children how to spot those things as well and to avoid getting into trouble. Verses 8 to 13. So Tamar went to her brother Amnon's house, and he was lying down, and she took dough, kneaded it, made cakes in his sight, and baked the cakes. She took the pan and dished them out before him, but he refused to eat. And Amnon said, "Have everyone go out from me." So everyone went out from him. Then Amnon said to Tamar, "Bring the food into the bedroom, that I may eat from your hand." So Tamar took the cakes which she had made and brought them into the bedroom to her brother Amnon. When she brought them to him to eat, he took hold of her and said to her, "Come lie with me, my sister." But she answered him, "No, my brother, do not violate me, for such a thing is not done in Israel. Do not do this disgraceful thing. As for me, where could I get rid of my reproach? And as for you, you will be like one of the fools in Israel. Now therefore, please speak to the king, for he will not withhold me from you." So how does Tamar try to diffuse this situation?
She's suggesting that he would ask the king for her, but would the king give his sister to be his wife? I don't know.
That's my next question, isn't it? Yes. What do you think?
I don't
I
know,
don't
I
think-
think it might have been.
Yeah. Would they be able to marry as
Because it goes on.
not, you know, half brother, sister in that relationship?
But they said, was the mother or the father,
The father was David.
the father was David, but it was different mothers.
Yeah.
Different mothers, yes.
So I've heard that if it's different mothers, it's okay. I'm not
Yeah.
sure about that.
I should have researched that to find out. I didn't. Paul, do you have any?
I think you'll find the emphasis on that as you work through the text.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so here we have this situation. I mean, you think Tamar suspected that something wasn't right with this? I mean, so why? It says right here that she had to come into the bedroom to serve him. Wouldn't that have put up a red flag?
Yeah,
in
I
her
would think
mind?
that
You know,
when he sent everybody out and tell her to come to the bedroom, I would have my feet would have been moving quickly.
What should she actually have done at that point?
Leave
Run.
the food and run.
Do
Run.
you think of anybody else who was in a situation where
Yeah, Joseph.
Joseph, when he was approached by his owner's
Potiphar's
wife,
wife, yeah.
yeah, he fled. Okay, yes,
I might think differently on that,
Okay.
because depending on her age, if she was a young woman, had not been accustomed to men, trusted her brother, she's in her household, I would suspect she doesn't have the experience and maybe have been quite naive about the situation. You know, I know from experience with a lot of girls that things like that have happened.
yeah,
That they have not read the signals because they haven't been experienced enough to know those are signals.
right.
You know, so I would give her the benefit of the doubt on
I
that
think
one.
that's a very valid, I think that's good.
It was a
Uh,
very different culture than what we're used to, too.
Yeah.
Yes,
You know, women weren't really given the option of
Saying
making
no.
choices sometimes.
yeah, and she would defer to,
Her father.
yeah,
her
and
brother.
maybe
She
the,
does
the older
protest.
brother,
Yeah.
okay? Not expecting that he was about to rape her, you know.
But if he really wanted to marry her, he would have, but it was only like temporary kind of whim.
Yes, that's right. Let's look at a couple verses here. Leviticus 18, let's go there for a moment. Leviticus 18, verses 9 to 11. These are just in answer to the question, would Amnon and Tamar have been allowed to marry? Okay, let's see here. So starting in verse 9. Okay, the nakedness of your sister, either your father's daughter or your mother's daughter, whether born at home or born outside, their nakedness you shall not uncover. The nakedness of your son's daughter or your daughter's daughter, their nakedness you shall not uncover, for their nakedness is yours. The nakedness of your father's wife's daughter, born to your father, she is your sister, you shall not uncover her nakedness. I think we're getting an answer here, okay? That no, they would not have been able to marry, okay? Going then over to chapter 20, verse 17. It says, if there is a man who takes his sister, his father's daughter, or his mother's daughter, so that he sees her nakedness and she sees his nakedness, it is a disgrace, and they shall be cut off in the sight of the sons of their people. He has uncovered his sister's nakedness, he bears his guilt. Okay, so again, no. And then over in Deuteronomy, chapter 27. Verse 22. Okay. Cursed is he who lies with his sister, the daughter of his father or of his mother, and all the people shall say amen. Okay, so no, this would not be allowed according to the law. Okay? So, and Tamar might have been unaware of that. Again, her youth and lack of knowledge, okay? Her suggestion couldn't be followed through with, okay?
But she did protest. She
Hmm?
did say this was disgraceful.
Oh, yes,
And asked him not to.
right. I think she's looking for a way out, okay? Maybe afraid of what's might happen here. We don't know because it doesn't give us any more information. So my next question here was, so what was the progression of Amnon's sin? By the way, just so you know, I've been spelling his name wrong all the way through this lesson. Okay, verse 2. when we look back at verse 2, what was the sin here?
Adultery.
No, it's not adultery yet. Hmm?
Will be rape.
Pardon me, sorry.
Rape.
No, verse 2, back to 13:2. What's his problem then? Lust. Okay. Okay. Then verses 3 to 5, what was the next progression? What's the next step he took?
Assaulting with a bad friend.
Yeah, listening to a bad friend.
It's not just an idea, he's like working to work it out.
Yeah, he's trying to move it along, isn't he? Okay? So he's got a plan here, right? It's deception. It's deception, okay? And then, okay, let's look at verses 11 to 14 then, okay? Let's see, I think we read already part of it, okay? We already read those verses. Oh no, we didn't, sorry. So looking at verse 14, however, he would not listen to her since he was stronger than she. He violated her and lay with her. So his lust led to a deception, which has led to rape. Okay? All right. And then, this is interesting, verses 15 to 17. Then Amnon hated her with a very great hatred, for the hatred with which he hated her was greater than the love with which he had loved her. And Amnon said to her, "Get up, go away." But she said to him, "No, because this wrong is in sending me away is greater than the one that you have done to me." Yet he would not listen to her. Then he called his young men who attended him and said, "Now throw this woman out of my presence and lock the door behind her." So what's happened now?
Now his conscience is convicting him of the evil that he's done, and I think, and he just can't stand to look at her now.
Yeah. He's disgusted, isn't he?
Yeah.
He just looks at her with disgust. He achieved his goal, but it obviously didn't satisfy. It didn't meet whatever need he had. Okay? And that's the outcome of sin, isn't it? Okay? We follow through with whatever sin we want, not necessarily this kind of thing, but whatever sin we follow through with, we become either disgusted with ourselves or with others who were involved with us. James 1:15 says, "Then when lust has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and when sin is accomplished, it brings forth death." Okay? Tamar was no longer a good prospect for marriage, and she could not return to live in the residence designated for virgins. So she went to Absalom. It was Absalom's responsibility as a full brother to protect the honor of a full sister. Verse 20 intimates that he figured out what had happened. Tamar may have mentioned that she was going to tell the king, but Absalom told her to wait. Okay, let's just read those verses. Okay, let's go on here. Verse 18. It says, "Now she had on a long-sleeved garment, for in this manner the virgin daughters of the king dressed themselves in robes. Then his attendant took her out and locked the door behind her. Tamar put ashes on her head and tore her long-sleeved garment which was on her, and she put her hand on her head and went away, crying aloud as she went. Then Absalom, her brother, said to her, 'Has Amnon your brother been with you? But now keep silent, my sister. He is your brother. Do not take this matter to heart.' So Tamar remained and was desolate in her brother Absalom's home, or house." So here we have, so how would Absalom have figured this out? I don't think Tamar actually told him. She'd be so ashamed that I don't think she told him what actually happened.
He seen how she looked, and she was crying and having the ashes on the head
Okay?
and torn the sleeves, which
Yes.
probably shows.
The garment that she would have worn as a virgin, she is now destroyed, which intimates that she's no longer a virgin.
Yes.
Okay?
So
And he may have been aware, because he lives in the household, the palace, that she had gone to see Amnon. Okay? And he, 1 and 1 makes 2. Okay? All right. So he said, I said here, Tamar may have mentioned that she was going to tell the king. We don't know that for sure. But Absalom told her to wait. Why?
Because he knew what he was gonna do.
And what's that?
Kill him.
Well,
but that happened later on. I think maybe he just want her to calm down, and he comforted her, telling her to not take this to the heart.
yes. Yeah, he, as I stated here, it was his responsibility to protect her honor, okay, as a full sister, okay? And, I mean, this is immediate, but he's already starting to think whether he's actually thought about revenge, or whether he's thinking he's going to have a chat with Amnon, whatever. It doesn't spell it out, but verse 21. Okay. Now, when King David heard of all these matters, he was very angry. So how did he find out? Tamar didn't tell him, I don't think. And Absalom definitely didn't.
He would have had advisors, you would think. would
He'd
tell
have
him.
advisors. That's the one
He
thing.
is king, people to tell you a few things.
Yes, there are people all over the place in the palace. You know, there are servants and guards and whatever. And I mean, gossip spreads like wildfire. Okay?
Tamar wasn't really hiding it, what had happened, because it says she went crying aloud.
Yes.
As she went.
So obviously people knew, and somebody reported back to the king. And again, whatever they told him, he put it together. This is what had happened. Okay, so how does he respond?
Very angry.
He's very angry. And it stops there.
So he didn't take the action.
He didn't do anything about it, did he?
No.
Okay. So what's lacking in his response?
Being a good parent.
Pardon me? Being a good parent?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lack of justice for Tamar, what happened to her, and also, you know, what Amnon did.
Yes. Yeah, there's no justice here. There's no retribution, okay? Any discipline, any punishment, whatever. So why does David do nothing?
Maybe he remembers his own ways from past.
I think that's very valid. Right away he would remember what he's done, okay? The sins that he's committed, and would feel inappropriate to do anything about this because he's got his own sin in front of his face, okay? If we're going on a scale here, okay, you know, he's been guilty of murder. Amnon's been guilty of rape. Now, we don't, you know, sin's sin, but it's kind of like, which one's the heavier, you know? Okay, and then he's got the adultery as well. So I mean, he just feels incapable of disciplining his children. I think that's what we have here. It says, according to the law, if a man raped a virgin not engaged to be married, he had to pay her father a fine and marry her, and he could never divorce her. That's found in Deuteronomy 22. But we'd already read the other verses about the relationship here,
Yeah.
that the marriage would be not allowed. Okay, those verses in Deuteronomy are talking about people who aren't related by blood. Okay.
Yeah, and the penalty for that was death,
Yes.
to be stoned.
Okay.
But really, he couldn't marry her because of the law
Right.
in this
Yeah,
situation.
he couldn't have. Yeah. Death was for adultery. Okay, but two unmarried people, okay, and there's a rape situation, then there was this penalty, and then he's forced to marry the one that he violated. Okay, so it's a little different than adultery is treated. Okay. So why did Absalom hate Amnon? I have two reasons.
He loved his sister for sure because it shows.
Okay, yeah, he loves his sister.
And
Okay.
I think he felt guilty because he didn't protect her.
Okay, yes. There's something else we really probably wouldn't go there in our thinking, because Amnon was the firstborn. Okay? So who's the heir to the throne?
The first
Amnon.
born.
And, okay, we're going to get back to this in just a minute here, okay? So let's go on to verse 22. It says, but Absalom did not speak to Amnon, either good or bad, for Absalom hated Amnon because he had violated his sister Tamar. So there we are. So he was angry because of the abuse. Okay? It says, now it came about after 2 full years. Notice this. After 2 years, Absalom had sheep herders in Baal-hazor, which is near Ephraim, and Absalom invited all the king's sons. So he's been stewing on this for 2 years.
Planning.
Plotting, okay? Okay, I wrote down here, what other purpose could Absalom have in avenging Tamar? Because we know this is where the plan is going, actually. Because then it would put him first in line to the throne, okay? This is maybe information that we need, okay? The first 3 heirs to David's throne were Amnon, the firstborn, Absalom, the third son, and Adonijah, the 4th son, according to 1 Chronicles 3, verses 1 and 2, okay? And then you say, where was number 2? Where's the second one? Okay. Well, Chileab, mentioned in 2 Samuel 3:2, or Daniel first, his name could be Daniel as well. They were kind of interchangeable. 1 Chronicles 3:1 is the second born, but tradition has it that he is deceased at the time of the conflict between Amnon and Absalom. He's never mentioned again in Scripture after these 2 verses. So we assume he died as a child, perhaps. Okay?
He was the son of Abigail.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Okay. So now it's been 2 years, according to verse 23. Absalom had his land and flocks at Baal-hazor, about 14 miles north of Jerusalem. It was customary to arrange great feasts at sheep shearing time and invite members of the family as well as friends to share in the occasion. Okay, so this would seem reasonable for Absalom to invite, but who does he invite?
All brothers.
All the brothers. So where's the rest of the family? Where are the mothers? Okay, the aunts and the uncles, they're not mentioned. It's specific. He wants all the sons there. Okay, so verses 24 to 26. Absalom came to the king and said, "Behold now, your servant has sheep shearers. Please let the king and his servants go with your servant." But the king said to Absalom, "No, my son, we should not all go, for we will all be burdensome to you." Although he urged him, he would not go, but blessed him. Then Absalom said, "If not, please let my brother Amnon go with us." And the king said to him, "Why should he go with you?" But when Absalom urged him, he let Amnon and all the king's sons go with him.
Lack of consistency.
Sorry, I missed what you said.
Lack of consistency.
Yes, all right. Okay, so how does Absalom show his cunning?
It's a little bit opposed to the way Ammon was with Tamar, right? Like, it's like, he specifically requested her, it was kind of weird.
Okay,
But Absalom was a bit more general about it,
yeah. Well, his invitation starts where?
the king himself.
With the king. What's his hope?
The king will not come.
Aha, which actually happens, right? He does what appears to be right, okay? Probably recognizing that his father, the king, is very busy with the court and business and will decline, okay? And then, so now he goes, he says, well, okay, if you won't come, well, let Amnon come. You know, I mean, in this is kind of like if the king isn't come, no one's coming, okay? Like, not the whole family, okay? So he says, let Amnon come. So what does the King David agree to?
He agreed that he will come.
He lets Amnon come, but notice what the end of the verse says, okay? It says, he let Amnon and all the king's sons go with him. So he added the sons. So why would he do that?
Because it says that Absalom pressed him, pushed him
Okay,
to make decision like that.
all right, okay. So David sends all of his sons to Absalom's celebration, okay, after having already said that not everyone would come, okay. So does he suspect anything?
Probably not.
Absalom's hiding that he hates Ammon.
Yes, he's been
That's true.
very quiet for 2 years, okay? And so the fact that David decides to let all the sons go sort of, in my mind at least, suggests that he thinks this is a little strange, that now Absalom wants just Amnon to come, because he knows what happened 2 years ago, and I think Absalom's hoping he's forgotten all about that, okay? So it's kind of like there's protection in numbers, okay? So, okay, Amnon can come, but all the other brothers are going to come as well, okay? All right. So let's go on here to verse, with the next verses. Okay, where was I? Okay. Verse 28. Absalom commanded his servants, saying, "See now, when Amnon's heart is merry with wine, and when I say to you, strike Amnon, then put him to death. Do not fear, have not I myself commanded you? Be courageous and be valiant." The servants of Absalom did to Amnon just as Absalom had commanded. Then all the king's sons arose, and each mounted his mule and fled. Okay. So, how does Absalom think he's escaped being accused of murder? Pardon me?
The blood is on their hands.
Yes, he had other people do it.
Kind of like David did.
Yes, yes.
Exactly.
Or he, it doesn't sound nice to say this, he learned from the best, you know,
Yeah.
okay.
Runs in the family.
Yeah, it tends to run in the family. Oh, boy. Well, we know the verses that talk in the scripture about when, I was reading today when Israel, or the people in Jerusalem wanted to crucify the Lord, they said to, was it Pilate or Herod, let his blood be on our hands, and then the curse comes down, yes, it'll follow down through the third and fourth generation. Okay? And so it becomes a pattern within families many times, with the sins of the father become the sins of the son, and so forth. Okay? Okay. So he's put the blame on others, you know, and he could defend himself and say, I had no idea they were going to do this, you know. I mean, but notice what happened. What happens with the other sons?
They ran.
They ran. Why run?
For life.
They thought that they would be next.
Exactly. Okay. See, and we're back to the hierarchy, okay? See, Amnon's next to the throne. If he's dead, then it falls to Absalom. And traditionally, you wipe out the competition, okay? So they were running for their lives because they didn't know if he was about to execute them as well, okay?
Well, I guess he didn't know that the Lord already said that Solomon was going to be king.
Right. But there were a number of people who didn't believe that. Okay. It says in verse 30 then, now it was while they were on the way that the report came to David saying, Absalom has struck down all the king's sons, and not one of them is left. Verse 31, then the king arose, tore his clothes, and lay on the ground, and all his servants were standing up by with clothes torn. So, what is this an example of?
Bad news.
Pardon me?
This is the bad news, but also is the
So
not,
how accurate is it?
not accurate.
It's not accurate at all. What do we do? Okay, how do I phrase this? Okay, without giving the answer. Okay, you have some news to report. Have you ever played that? Okay, have you ever played that game where you get a few people in a line, you say something secretly to this person, and then they're supposed to pass it to the next person and the next person and the next person, and by the time it gets down to, you don't have to go very far. By the time it gets to the fourth or the fifth person, it doesn't resemble the message
Exactly.
to the first person
Completely
at all.
Changed.
Pardon me?
Completely changed.
Completely
the story.
changed.
Broken telephone, they call it.
Yes. Yeah, there used to be a game show with this on. It was hilarious, okay? The things that would be at the end of the line.
That calls misinformation
Yeah.
today.
In our culture,
Yes.
how about gossip?
Gossip, yeah.
Okay? How accurate is gossip?
It's partially true because one son was dead, really.
Yeah. Yeah. When gossip starts, the person who starts it may have the right information, but as it goes on, it changes, okay? Because it becomes everybody's interpretation, and it's the way they say it, you know, and so forth, okay? So this is kind of what you've got here, okay? Very dangerous. So news travels fast, but not accurately, okay? Verses 32 to 26. Okay, let's see here. Jonadab, the son of Shimei, David's brother, responded, do not let my lord suppose they have put to death all the young men, the king's sons, for Amnon alone is dead, because by the intent of Absalom this has been determined since the day that he violated his sister Tamar. Now therefore do not let my lord the king take the report to heart, namely, all the king's sons are dead, for only Amnon is dead. So what does Abinadab, or Jonadab rather, know?
That it was false information, that it was only Amnon that died.
Yeah, he's got the truth.
He must have been close to the situation when it happened.
Huh, how interesting.
You wonder if that wasn't his plot in the first place, because he knew that when he had Tamar go into the room, that was going to be the likely result of it. And he may have known that Absalom hated his half-brother.
Yeah.
And that this was probably going to come to conclusion. There would be a rape, and then Absalom or somebody would have to take revenge out
Yeah.
on him.
Yeah.
You know, he must have had suspicions in the back of his mind that this was going to be
Mm-hmm.
the end result.
Yeah. Who's Jonadab looking out for here?
Himself.
Himself.
Himself, oh yeah.
I think in some respects, you know, we talk about narcissists. He's, whose friend was he at first?
Ammon's
Amnon. Who's-
pretend friend, probably.
Oh, yes, I think so. So whose friend is he now?
David's.
Huh?
King David, because he wants to tell
Mhm.
him the truth.
Yes, yes. So now he's going to be in the good graces of the king, but he had already changed alliance from Amnon to Absalom because he's in on the plan, right? He knows what's going on. So over the last 2 years, he's ingratiated himself to Absalom because he's got the facts. He knows exactly what the plan was, okay? All right. So what do you think of this guy?
Not much.
What do we,
Well, he knew how to position himself.
okay, yes. It actually said, previous verse, it said he was shrewd. Shrewd. And when we think of shrewd, we can think of Satan in the garden, okay? The snake, okay? I don't even like to say that because it's interesting. Okay, I'm going to sidetrack here for a second because when we think of Eve's temptation in the garden, and it talks about the serpent. The serpent was not a serpent as we know it now, okay? In fact, Satan, when he was in heaven, was a cherub, okay? He was covered in jewels. He was full of light, okay? And when he was cast out, it doesn't say that he was stripped of all of that. So when he presented himself to Eve, would he have presented himself like a serpent or a snake as we know them today? I don't think so. He would have been something beautiful, very appealing, who can speak with authority, okay? And he may have, I'm only going on my interpretation, which could be totally false, okay? But I think he presented himself as the jeweled cherub, though he was fallen, okay? Because he hadn't been cursed yet to his fallen state, except that he had been cast out of heaven, okay? But he hadn't been cursed to hell, okay? All right. At any rate, so I think of Jonadab as a snake in the grass, okay? And he did nothing to stop it, did he? It doesn't say anything about him counseling Absalom. Oh, don't go there. Don't do that. Okay, verses 37 and 38. Now Absalom fled. Well, that's understandable. And went to Talmai, the son of Ammihud, the king of Geshur. Why would he go there?
Because that was his family, his mother.
Yeah, it's his mother's home, right? Okay.
He would be protected probably and given some life to live.
Okay, yes, okay. Anyway, let me finish the verse here. And David mourned for his son every day. So Absalom had fled and gone to Geshur and was there 3 years. The heart of King David longed to go out to Absalom, for he was comforted concerning Amnon since he was dead. Okay. So I wrote here, Absalom flees 80 miles northeast to the home of his maternal grandparents in Geshur, where his grandfather Talmai was king. There's no mention of Talmai's reaction. And I wrote here, it seems to me at least, he obviously accepts Absalom, perhaps already being aware of the plot to kill Amnon. It might be, we don't know, that Absalom had already planned an escape plan. Okay? Anyone who's going to commit murder, premeditated murder, usually also plans for their escape. Okay? They don't just rashly do this. It's all been planned out. And Talmai would probably be happy to see his grandson crowned king of Israel. Right? The family tie gets even stronger. Okay. And verse 39. The chapter ends with David longing for his son, Absalom, who has been in exile for 3 years. What could this mean?
It might have eased the situation because 3 years passed by
Okay, yes?
and David would be forgiving his son
Yes.
these 3 years,
Yeah.
and he would long to see him.
Yes. I mean, Absalom, irrespective of what he's done, is still David's son, so he still loves him, and he desires to see him. It basically says that, okay? And perhaps he was prepared to forgive him, okay? He wants to be reconciled, okay? Whatever that is. What is he unwilling to do?
Sorry, what was the question?
What is David unwilling to do?
Take the first step.
Okay, yes,
Go to meet him where he is, meaning in Geshur.
okay. I think, okay, I'm looking for something else here.
Probably didn't want to appear weak or that, in the public and everything like that.
Okay,
Because he's the king.
yes,
And, so, and he had, obviously broken a law and was supposed to have died, the son.
now there it is. What's the punishment for murder?
Death.
Not dead, so he doesn't want to have his son dead.
He does not want to execute his son? I mean, isn't he the logical one to follow that through? And why wouldn't he do that?
And if he brings him back home, then people are gonna say, why are you letting him get away with it?
Uh-huh.
It's pretty.
Paul? Sorry.
David himself is also a murderer, yet God showed him mercy.
So he's prepared himself to show mercy. Maybe. I would assume. Okay? Yes. He can't do anything because in a sense he's hamstrung because he's been guilty of the same thing. And if that's probably for any of us. If we're guilty of some particular sin, crime, whatever, it would be very difficult for us to bring about some discipline or punishment on somebody else who's guilty of the same thing. And we would probably draw back. Because David could have, this has been 3 years, he could have pursued him. He could, realize there's a political alliance here, and there's also a family connection, but basically David does nothing for 3 years, you know, and yes, Paul?
The other thing that is similar to Absalom with David is also not only guilty of murder, he's also guilty of lust
Yes.
after another man's woman,
Yeah,
just as Amnon lusted after a father's daughter.
right. Yeah. It's kind of, in a sense, it's very much in his face, isn't it? You know, I can just see him just shaking his head. I just can't do anything. Okay?
Don't they say the sins of the father passed down to the sons kind
Yeah.
of thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, we've got a few minutes left here. We'll just start into chapter 14 just a little bit. So I wrote here, David's now close to 60 years old at this point. Okay? So it's been a significant number of years. Okay? Verse 1. So now Joab, the son of Zeruiah, perceived that the king's heart was inclined toward Absalom. Who's Joab?
Commander of the army.
He's the commander of the army. Who is he in relation to David, King David? It says who he's the son of however you say her name. Zeruiah. Okay. Who is she? Haha. She was David's sister. Okay. So he's the son of David's sister. All right. So what is he to David?
Nephew.
A nephew. Okay, so he's related. As well as being commander of the army, he's related. You know, this whole thing becomes very much political intrigue. Okay? And I mean, if you've studied the history of Europe, you know, with all these intermarriages between the different kingships, whatever, these different countries, and all the politics going on, this is what we're seeing right here, a lot of this. This is political intrigue, if you want to put it that way. So, it never says who his father is, but I did do a little bit of reading and found that his father's name, or Joab's father's name, according to tradition, is Suri, S-U-R-I. So, I don't know. He's not mentioned, but anyway. Okay. So, here we are. Now Joab, the son of Zeruiah, perceived that the king's heart was inclined toward Absalom. So Joab sent to Tekoa and brought a wise woman from there and said to her, "Please pretend to be a mourner and put on mourning garments now, and do not anoint yourself with oil, but be like a woman who has been mourning for the dead many days. Then go to the king and speak to him in this manner." So Joab put the words in her mouth. Okay. What's Joab's concern here in these opening verses of chapter 14?
That he might lose his position?
How would that happen? Oh, that Joab would lose his position?
Yeah,
Okay.
as commander.
Okay.
David's soft towards Absalom.
That's his concern,
Yeah.
that he's soft? Do you think
Well,
that
no.
he thinks he should be more harsh? Or,
Well, it says his heart's inclined. He knew that David's heart was inclined to Absalom.
okay, all right. With that in mind, that David is thinking about and speaking about his son Absalom, who's in exile, okay? What would Joab's concern be here, taking that a step further? Not so much his own position, I don't think, but,
I think he wanted reconciliation.
okay, yeah, he would want Okay? And why would he desire the reconciliation? I mean, Absalom's kind of out of the way, you know.
Perhaps he cared about David and knew how unhappy David was
Mhm.
wanted him to be, bring about some way of bringing the two of them together without causing the death of Absalom.
Okay, yes?
Maybe he wants to get in the king's good books,
Well, there could be that too.
bringing them,
Yeah,
by
I mean,
bringing them back.
I'm the writer of the peace treaty. Okay? Okay, there's that. The thing is, okay, here you have the king who's mourning the loss of Amnon and in a sense mourning the loss of Absalom. Okay? And so he's on the throne and he's sighing and moping
and sulking.
sulking and commenting to everybody about how terrible this is, you know. And so Joab, hearing all of this, what's his responsibility again?
To keep.
Joab's responsibility.
Commander of the army.
He's commander of the army. So this despondency that David is in, could it have a negative effect on the military? Because he's the commander in chief, right? And if he's out of the, you know, kind of so caught up with this breakdown of relationship, he can't give direction like probably he should, or be the symbol that the army needs of a strong leader, okay? Because there's, while all this is going on, there's still threats on the nation, okay? And I think Joab is thinking, hey, we gotta put this behind us because the morale is so low, okay? And then you're gonna have a revolt, okay? And you could have a revolt within the country, and you don't need that, okay? So, starting here, so we haven't read the whole plan here, but what do you think about this initial thing of having this wise woman come and she's going to be a part of a plot on behalf of, you know, and Joab's going to put the words in her mouth that she's going to take to David.
He wanted to influence someone else to present the situation exactly the same, almost the same,
Okay,
to give the King David the idea how to respond for the woman,
okay, mm-hmm,
and by the same token, he would maybe think about his own situation.
okay, yes. Let's read some more of these verses here. We'll go through this pretty quickly. It says, "Now when the woman of Tekoa spoke to the king, she fell on her face to the ground and prostrated herself and said, 'Help, O king.' The king said to her, 'What is your trouble?' And she answered, 'Truly I am a widow, for my husband is dead. Your maidservant had 2 sons, but the 2 of them struggled together in the field, and there was no one to separate them. So one struck the other and killed him. Now behold, the whole family has risen against your maidservant, and they say, hand over the one who struck his brother, that we may put him to death.'" Remember from the Avenger of Death? Okay? Okay. And he didn't run, obviously, to a city of refuge, but he was guilty of murder. He would have been cast out anyways. Okay. Anyway, that we may put him to death for the life of his brother whom he killed, and destroy the heir also. Thus they will extinguish my coal which is left, so as to leave my husband neither name nor remnant on the face of the earth. Then the king said to the woman, "Go to your house, and I will give orders concerning you." The woman of Tekoa said to the king, "O my lord, the king, the iniquity is on me and my father's house, but the king and his throne are guiltless." So the king said, "Whoever speaks to you, bring him to me, and he will not touch you any more." Then she said, "Please let the king remember the Lord your God, so the avenger of blood will not continue to destroy. Otherwise they will destroy my son." And he said, "As the Lord lives, Not one hair of your son shall fall to the ground. Does this story ring a bell at all?
The best is that the king and his throne is
Yeah.
guiltless.
Doesn't it kind of resonate of when Nathan came to David after the adultery, and we talk about the guy had 2 lambs.
2 lambs,
Or a
yeah.
lamb, yeah. Yeah, doesn't it kind of sound, do you think Joab was aware of the past?
Probably.
Very much so, okay? I think he knows the whole story, so here we are. Then the woman said, "Please let your maidservant speak a word to my lord the king." Oh, here it comes. And he said, "Speak." The woman said, "Why then have you planned such a thing against the people of God? For in speaking this word, the king is as one who is guilty, in that the king does not bring back his banished son. For we will surely die, and are like water spilled on the ground, which cannot be gathered up again. Yet God does not take away life, but plans ways so that the banished one will not be cast out from him. Now the reason I have come to speak this word to my lord the king is that the people have made me afraid. So your maidservant said, 'Let me now speak to the king. Perhaps the king will perform the request of his maidservant. For the king will hear and deliver his maidservant from the hand of the man who would destroy both me and my son from the inheritance of God.' Then your maidservant said, 'Please let the word of my lord the king be comforting. For as the angel of God, so is my lord the king to discern good and evil, and may the Lord your God be with you.'" Then the king answered and said to the woman, "Please do not hide anything from me that I am about to ask you." And the woman said, "Let my lord the king please speak." So the king said, "Is the hand of Joab with you in all this?" And the woman replied, "As your soul lives, my lord the king, no one can turn to the right or to the left from anything that my lord the king has spoken." Notice all the flattery that she's been throwing out on King David here, okay? "Indeed, it was your servant Joab who commanded me, and it was he who put all these words in the mouth of your maidservant. In order to change the appearance of things, your servant Job has done this thing. But my Lord is wise, like the wisdom of the angel of God, to know all that is in the earth." Okay. Okay. So the story here is that, from this woman, is that her 2 sons had an argument in the field. One killed the other, and the other relatives want to slay the guilty son and avenge his brother's blood, which, according to Scripture, is okay. She opposed them, since killing her only son would put an end to her family, also her inheritance, okay? Because she wouldn't have a husband or sons, and so there's a problem of the land that belongs to her family, okay, that she could lose as well. So according to the law, what should be done with the surviving son?
Kill him,
Pardon me?
execute him.
Execute him, yes. Exodus 21:12 says that, as well as Leviticus 24:17. So he's guilty, and he should be put to death. Could he go to a city of refuge?
No, because he's guilty.
Because he is guilty. Okay.
Well, he could go, but then he would have to still face the court.
Yes, he would. Who can hide in a city of refuge?
Innocent person, or a person that didn't do it intentionally,
Yes, it had to be accidental.
accidentally.
Okay, if you kill somebody accidentally, then you could run to a city of refuge and be saved. Okay. So what does the woman want David to do for her son?
Protect him.
Protect him, pardon him, right?
Yeah.
Okay. To tell the people that you cannot kill him. Okay. Okay. So the woman's plea was for one small family, but the matter concerning Absalom affected an entire nation. Okay? Did I read those verses? I think I did. Okay. Since David agrees to pardon this woman's son, what is he obligated to do for Absalom?
Pardon him as well.
He's caught. He has no option here. He has to pardon Absalom as well. And so in verses 18 to 20, what does David recognize? Well, that the woman is actually referring to her own family conflict, and that Joab, and he figures out Joab's behind this. Okay? All right. So verses, did I read verses? I didn't go all the way through, did I? No. Okay, we're going to stop there for tonight. It's 8:15, so we'll pick it up there next week, finish out chapter 14, and I will send out the notes for chapters 15 to 19. Okay, that will be the next section. Okay. Thank you, folks, for participating, and I trust you found this to be encouraging in some way.
Thank you.
Very good,
Very
Gary.
much.
That's our reading right now. We've been reading through, we just started First Kings, but we just finished reading. I have that MacArthur Daily Bible,
Okay,
and we just finished First and Second Samuel, and we just started the First Kings.
oh, okay, very
We had
good.
many questions. And many unknowns.
Well, maybe when we get up there, we'll answer some of those questions. Okay.